It is a Monday edition of Red Sox Now, all presented by the great gang at FanArch. Fantastic people. Thank them for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. I'm Mike Antonellis. At the Radio Mike is the handles on all my social media. I have a nice little link on X. If you click it, it will. It's Linktree. There's just too many of these things, right? Makes me dizzy. Like, how do I put? It would be easy just to have something even simple, or not even the QR code. I don't know what. I got to invent something. But it's like the streaming services. They all have to be in one spot. Too many options. Hope you had a great weekend. You enjoyed the NFL. Amazing games. Patriots played great. How did your team do? The Germany, right? Jonathan Taylor, if you guys gamble, is the easiest bet on the planet, by the way. Just a little gambling thing, like his rushing prop. I think he hits it every week. But what a great weekend of sports, college, high school, a lot of football, a lot of the fall seasons transitioning. At your local college or high school, we get the winter sports in full effect. And we've got more happening with baseball. Every day that goes by, and we realize that this offseason is not as long as we think, right? I mean, it's November 10th. And a couple more weeks, this happens. And we got the Rule 5 draft. We get the winter meetings coming up. It's going to be go time after Christmas. When we get to the 2026, we start doing shows in January. Because those guys start trickling down. I talked about this on Friday. It's crazy. There's guys working out. I want to interrupt myself if I can. One huge reason, again, obviously the Dodgers have the cash. We know that. But Shohei Ohtani and a bunch of Dodgers were already working out at Dodger Stadium because that's the luxury. And I think they probably do that in San Diego and all the warm climates. But they showed Shohei running the track with his dog. And those guys it's like a full year. That's why a lot of players now with the Red Sox have relocated to Fort Myers so they can work out year-round. But those guys are going to be down there mid-January. It's crazy. So we're not looking at a lot of time until we get back into the swing of things. Who's back? Jason Varitek announced it at a charity. And he had this to say. Happened to be a lot of openings, a lot of different things, nothing transpired. So that makes me feel that, well, he should. I think that will come across to people as he didn't want to be here. No, you do, but you don't want to be in that position that he's in for the rest of his life. It's just like being a player again. I always liked seeing this transformation of coaches. I've been around in my 30 years working in professional baseball. I've been around a lot of coaches that were big league players that have to go back and do the whole thing again, where they're riding the buses, they're paying their dues. Now, Varitek didn't do that, which a lot of these guys that have good playing careers don't have to do the grind. But Varitek was a roving instructor where he had to travel a lot in the minor leagues. He would go from affiliate to affiliate. That's how I got to know him for years. He was doing that. So he did pay his dues a little bit. And he's trying to get to a bigger seat. I mean, most of these guys don't want to be career bench coaches or first base or third base coaches. But in that quote, he said, I've been here 28 years, love the people that I worked for, especially our manager. Yeah, I mean, for all of the comments I get about Alex Cora, and I told you, many of you this, guys and gals, you know, we get a few people that don't like Cora. And I was talking about with someone Saturday about the X's and O's. Like, anyone can do that. We all could do that. A lot of you just don't understand and you should, from what job you have, your leader, right? Your leader doesn't have to be the smartest person all the time. I've learned that as I've gotten older. They got to be a good manager of people. And that is the ultimate compliment. And Veritek made sure people knew that. For him to say that, well, he's got to say that. No, he doesn't. He didn't have to say that. Didn't have to say that at all. I've been here 28 years. I love it. I love the organization. But to say how much he loved our manager, that's a leader. And that's how they all feel about him. But I had a great conversation with someone on Saturday. We're talking about this collection of college coaches, and he was saying, I don't really know how good they are X's and O's, but they're terrific with the kids, and they're terrific leaders. And I think Veritek is that, and he's learning a lot from working under Alex Cora. It's a good type of internship, so to speak, that these coaches get to learn underneath, working underneath. But this is something that I really like that he brought up, talking about the success of the club. He goes, you start with a horse like Garrett Crochet, and we've all talked about that. That changed your franchise. Talked about Narvaez. Narvi had a tremendous first year, did an extremely good job. We have to keep growing. We had a lot of youth come up and contribute, but it also had some bumps, which I talked about, highs, lows with young players. We have to continue to be healthy. Another huge thing. We had some guys who had some awesome years. So good for Veritek. Happy he's back. And just share with you, my experiences with him. He's fantastic. He really is. The players, it's interesting. A lot of the players, are younger now. They know of him, but it's not like the way we might know the older people. We're more, in awe of him. But he is a really terrific person. The GM meetings start. So what does that mean? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, unlike the winter meetings, this is where clubs and agents first, they dive in and talk about roster building for the upcoming season. So with the GM meetings, it's an opportunity for all those executives to gather, and they talk about the game and get a jump on potential moves. Here's what they do. Executives will be in meetings to discuss league-related issues for much of their time in Vegas, though they'll surely find time to discuss trading opportunities with each other and meet with agents about this year's free agent class. So it's good. They get it. They get a little ahead of it. But it won't be what we think. But it's a head start. One thing that I think most of you know, and if you don't, some think that a lot of stuff happens in real time. It does not. Does not happen in real time. I found this out from a scout that I was talking to, and he said that during the deadline, it was a lot of people pushing for Connolly early, not Peyton Tolley. And I know that surprised them. Everyone goes by prospect rankings, and which I tried to warn you that other general managers don't whip out the Baseball America top prospect book and order players off a menu. It doesn't work that way. But not many would have thought that. He wasn't on my radar. Connolly early wasn't on anyone's radar, but it's interesting. So that development process, and I read some good stuff about the Yankees too, with their guy, Schlittler, who they were kind of taming down his innings, and they were forecasting him to be part of their rotation later in the year. Probably not on any Yankee radar, and I'm sure he was asked for at the deadline. I'm sure Savage from the Blue Jays was asked for. So my point is that there's a lot of things that are in the works with development of players that they won't give up because they do see something. But there's a lot of these trades that have already been talked about. I think the great example that I can point out to you was the Chris Sale deal, because the White Sox, when I was in Portland we had Moncada with us and Benintendi. It was unbelievable. It was everywhere we went. They had to do a ton of press, and the White Sox were following us for a while. And I remember a White Sox scout told me the deal will happen in the offseason. And I was like, oh, okay. I was surprised he told me that. I didn't tell anybody. I can say it now because it did happen. But that was in the works months before. They put together the deal already. The deal was done. They didn't do it for months after that. So there could be a lot of things that are already done. They've already exchanged. Because you got to think about it. Any player that's moved, that's pretty good, the negotiations are going to be tough. You know, I heard the White Sox, what they asked for at the deadline for Chris Sale was insane. I think it was Benintendi, Moncada, Kopech, and 3 other. I heard it was like 5 or 6 guys. And the White Sox had no leverage in that deal because that was when Chris Sale had already, that year he cut up their jerseys. He had already vocally pushed himself out of there. And I didn't think the Red Sox really gave up that much. If you think about it at the time, they got up. I mean, we're calling him a Hall of Fame arm. But so a lot of things will happen. And hopefully at these GM meetings, they talk more about next year because it's just awful thinking that we could have a work stoppage. And I don't even want to think about that. So, I got this text from my buddy over the weekend because we were going back and forth about Tarek Skubal because he watches this. And he disagrees with my take that the Tigers should do what's best for the organization regardless of who they trade with. And I still disagree with it. But he threw this out here. Would you do a deal with the Tigers if you had to give up Tolle and Early and Duran? I don't think they would do that. I still think it would be Rafaela. We're talking about a top 3 arm in the game right now. And the Tigers, think about this. It's the Red Sox. So you have to think, and my point with him was this, that people here just don't understand the hatred of Boston, New York, if you're in the American League in another city. Right? The Tigers have been beaten up on the Yankees. They've been beaten up by the Yankees and the Red Sox. I mean, look at 13. And I still will sit by my words that, yes, business-wise, you cannot make a deal like that. I don't care who you get back. Unless it's Roman Anthony, Connolly Early, Cedane Rafaela, and Durant. Like, it would have to be absolutely like 4 25-man roster players. It would have to be. It would have, like, that for me, you got to think of a general manager for the Tigers, and those people, they're making a deal. They're not thinking long term. And if you make a deal, this is why we have to get outside, like looking at prospects and numbers and all this stuff. Like, it's a horrible message to your fans. And I still think even if it was with those 2 pitchers and Rafaela, I still would not do that if I was Detroit. I think if I were the Red Sox, I would definitely do it. I would definitely give up those 2 arms, Rafaela and someone else, because you have enough pitching. If you had those 2 in Bayo and you have kids coming up, you could still sign another free agent on short money. And you have Dobbins, Fitz, and who knows what. It would just, you would have the best 2 arms in the game. Like the best, you'd instantly. But I just think it's just, it's not happening. I wish this stuff wasn't out there so much because I think a lot of fans are getting their hopes up. But business, part of business is making moves that has to appease your fan base. And I just think about it, if I was a diehard Tiger fan, in my teens, and regardless of how old you were, and you're trading a 20-year-old Hall of Fame arm to one of your arch rivals, that's a bad. I don't think I would want to go to a game anymore, unless it is just stupid return. Can you imagine if the Red Sox traded Roman Anthony, by the way? It's not going to happen. We can dream, as the sidebar says. All right, let's get to your comments before we close out Monday. At Desjardins 2520, Framber has made 31 starts through the last 4 years, 28 in the fourth. He's reliable. He's a good number two behind. Yeah. I still think some of you are under-delivering Brian Bayo. I mean, there were only 16 pitchers in the game that had a better ERA than him. And I'll get, well, ERA doesn't matter. Okay, all right, fine. It matters to me. I mean, runs allowed per game matters to me. I don't know why some of these stats don't matter anymore. I mean, Valdez was decent last year. He was decent. He had a lot of walks. His ERA was 3.66. He had 13 wins. But I think, again, I think we've done it with Giolito a little bit. I get that Giolito got hurt. We have to stop anything that happens at the end. We're just everyone's like, well, he's injury prone. He'll never come back. I mean, they all get hurt. We've seen 1,000 guys have a bad ending to a season or get hurt at the end and then come back next year and they're healthy and they're fine. I heard people say this with Eovaldi, Pivetta. Michael Wacha he was a flash in the pan. And then we can't just live off everything that just happened. Listen to Giolito's podcast with Rob Bradford. He had a freak injury. He's fine. It set him back. He's stronger. I'm not saying that you don't look for other options, but I think we're really underselling what some of these guys did last year. I mean, just to throw aside that, well, Bayo's can't be a number two. I mean, how do you know that? He's still super young. He's younger than most of the players on this list that had better years than him, have more experience. He improved leaps and bounds last year as a person, and I thought his mound composure. But to just say that he's not a number two now, I mean, I'm not going to go down that road and say that that's definite and that you just bring in someone else and they're going to just slide in and they're going to be a number two. I don't know. I don't think Bayo's stuff is not top of the rotation type of stuff. We just think like everyone else that's going to come in is going to be better. I mean, Nick Pivetta was 10th in baseball in ERA. Is his stuff dramatically better than Bayo? No. But he'll be allotted like a number. He's not a top of the rotation guy. But from a lot of people I've talked to, because of the numbers, right? That makes him. Some make him, some don't. So I don't know. I think it's just getting into this Crochet is a number one. After that, what does it matter? But to just cap off, I still look at the whole body of work. Bayo is, whether he's a 2 or a 3, I think we're splitting hairs on this, but he still had a really damn good year than a lot of guys that are free agents. A lot of guys that I'm looking at on this list. And it's interesting, I'll get a lot of brushback on this about numbers, but then I get numbers to make the case for somebody. We use numbers when but when I watch him, I don't see a guy that's like a 3 or 4. I mean, is he... And I get it if you brought in someone like Freddie Peralta or, Joe Ryan, a guy like DeGrom. Those guys are, stuff-wise, 5 pitches. Yeah. Sanchez, those guys, Chris Sanchez. Max Fried, those kind of guys, yeah. But if Joe Ryan comes in, I don't think he's a glaring, like, head and shoulders, way above Brian Bayo. And, like, does it really matter? Like, if they sign Valdez and it went Crochet, Bayo, and Valdez, I mean, is that an issue? You just bring in the best, you could have a collection of threes after Crochet. I think Connolly Early is going to be a top-of-the-rotation guy. I saw all weekend people saying he's a fifth starter. I don't know what would compel anyone to say that. Maybe because we don't have enough of him. I have enough of him to see that he's stuff-wise. Limited experience. He is going to be a 3 or a 2. Like, he's got the stuff to be near the top for me. But let's not get so... It's just like, all I get is they need a number 2. They need a number 2. I mean, okay. Number 3's fine too, right? I mean, if it's Crochet, Bayo, Crochet, Michael King, Bayo, Early, Dobbins, you got and you got guys that will be developed. At Christopher Marston, 4491, Francona was on Bradford's podcast, Hunter Green's not getting traded. Yes. Yep, I've been saying that for almost a month. It's just a lot of writers throw stuff out there and teams throw stuff out there just to see, but it's laughable, some of the things you'll see on the internet. Francona would not allow any of that. At Harlan Bram 772, Criswell could probably create a niche as a long reliever spot starter. I agree, especially at the beginning of the year. Have to keep a lot of pitching in case of injuries. Yep. Notice over the years, relievers play a larger role in the game. No sports fan wants to see their team tank. That's in reference to Baltimore. Yeah, as much as we talked about the Red Sox, and I brought this up, boy, there were a lot of teams, like the teams in the World Series. They had tons of injuries as well. So, while we do focus on the Red Sox, which makes sense, it's called Red Sox Now, it is really an issue. And I did read somewhere that teams are trying to, talk about ways to correct that. But I still go back to this. I have had a lot of players tell me this, and coaches, and Alex Cora said it, that they're just too ramped up. I respect Ohtani, but the fact that he's already working out 9 days after, it's okay to rest for a month. These guys are not doing that. And so something's got to change, as we're having more injuries. If you think about this, you look at some of what the players look like back, the thing that hasn't changed about the game is the grind. The game was harder for those guys in the 70s, 80s, 60s, like even going back. Rich Gedman said, we didn't have a charter. We flew out of Logan Airport. And they played games at 7:30 at night. And they played every day. They didn't have as many days off. They played double headers. So the grind of the season is not easier. Like, it's never been, regardless of what decade you're in. It's always been hard. But when I grew up, I never saw this many injuries, and players didn't look like these guys. They were able to get through the season. This is the injuries is just, it's historic. Sandy Koufax, in his book, said pitchers need to be built more wiry, not big and bulky. But how are you going to fix that? That's this era of strength and conditioning, money. The harder you throw, the more money. So there is also this element that we've got the most, impressive set of players. I think, this era, like, we got some unbelievable, talented players. They're just not lasting, or they're getting hurt. They're not pitching a lot. So I really, I've racked my brain with this. I'm not sure how you would ever fix this, but maybe less is more. We'll see if the workouts get limited. But I know that it's becoming an issue now with teams are really concerned because, you're spending a lot on guys, but just using 16 to 17 different starters. A lot of teams did that. It's not what you want to see. All right, that will wrap it up for Monday. At the Radio Mike is the social handles. Subscribe and like and comment on the channel on your way out. Red Sox Now is presented by FanArch. We'll see you all on Tuesday, and as always, go Sox.